Hello and welcome back to another Fury Warrior Mythic Uldir commentary video. This is where I go over the fight from a progression standpoint and I talk about talents, why I've picked them, and generally how I approach the encounter from a progression standpoint. Again, I'm only going to be doing talents. I'm not going to be doing Azerite trait selection because I'm yet to come across an encounter which kind of requires me to make certain Azerite trait selections. I'm just going to be choosing what seems highest. So let's get right into it. The talents I went with from top to bottom are Endless Rage, Stormbolt, Sudden Death, Warpaint, Carnage, Dragon Roar, and Siegebreaker. Although there are adds on this fight, they again don't really spawn regularly enough to make War Machine a valuable choice, which leaves us between Fresh Meat and Endless Rage. Endless Rage is just the more consistent, better, stronger talent compared to Fresh Meat, so that's why I went with Endless Rage for the first tier. Now on the next tier, I actually went with Stormbolt instead of Double Time, and the reason for that is because I am in the second group which crosses the gate into the next room, which means that my kind of key role in this fight is going to be ad management. There's two quite dangerous ads that can happen. There's ones which cast a spell which need interrupting, and there's another, the Viral Contagion, which is like a ball globe looking blood thing that casts a dot which goes out and it has to be dispelled. You have to be in space to get dispelled. It's basically a pain in the ass, right? Okay, and in the second room you have to move for lasers, and so the stun can be used to, from range, if you're having to stack away or for whatever reason, stun these ads and really kind of prevent raid wiping mechanics from happening. And quite frankly, if you play it quite well, then you don't need the double time. You should never really be out of range of the boss, you know, frequently enough that you have to use 2 charges of charge. Next tier, I chose Sudden Death because you can get some nice juicy execute cleaves. Furious Slash is really only a talent you might consider if it's single target. This isn't single target, so I went with Sudden Death. Next tier, I went with Warpaint. There's quite a lot, there's a fair amount of damage here that can go out, so I decided that I'd go with Warpaint just to try and ease some of the pressure on the healers. Following Warpaint, I took Carnage. It's simply just the best talent in that tier for kind of raid content. Or at least, you know, consistent single target and cleave damage. And then the choice between Bladestorm and Dragon's Roar. I think you could make a case for Bladestorm, potentially, maybe. If you're really struggling to get the first, you know, 2 groups of ads killed when you transition the room. So you've got, you know, 6 ads up at once and you just can't kill them. You haven't got enough burst DPS. Potentially, Bladestorm might do you favors. However, for us, we were killing them quite quick, so Dragon's Roar was really nice, and it is up consistently for the following packs to come. There's quite a trickle of ads as you bring in more people from room 1 to room 2 and then room 2 to room 3. You get quite consistent ads, which leads up a lot of opportunity to cleave on Dragon's Roar. And the final talent, I went with Siegebreaker this time. Siegebreaker, the debuff of it can be cleaved onto ads using the Whirlwind buff. So for that reason, it adds a nice bit of cleave, good single target spell as well, and it's just, I think it's just the best talent here. So I'm going to be opening with a Bursting Blood pre-pot, but I'm not actually going to be going straight into my cooldowns. My job here, I'm in the second group, so I'm going to be going into the next room within, you know, kind of 10 seconds, and I'm going to have to be dealing with ads, and those ads are what is really going to wipe you. So I'm not going to be using Recklessness or Siegebreaker. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be making sure that after these AoEs on the floor go off, I have a buff of Whirlwind and I have lots of rage. Get into the next room, immediately Recklessness, cleave Siegebreaker, Rampage off that, Dragon's Roar, and really just get much maximum damage off as I can, making sure that these ads don't get cast off. So I'm going to let myself get pushed back by the winds, charge in for another Rampage, always hitting what I can close enough. Now the winds are over, I'm going to be cleaving Sudden Death, making sure that we get an interrupt on that, otherwise that's a wipe, and then just killing the Contagion. That Contagion is the one that I said will cause the buff. You see where I had to go out there and get dispelled? That will cast the buff. So the quicker that dies, the better. And it's the Remnant of Corruption which have the cast, which put a disease or something on everyone. That needs interrupting, otherwise again, that's a wipe. So you see why the kind of like the bursty kind of cleavy damage from Siegebreaker and Dragon's Roar is really good here, because now I'm in this room, it's consistently lots of ads. And again, that's why I've taken Stormbolt. Is we'll use AoE stuns on these to get most of the casts, but if everyone's on cooldown or we're out of range, Stormbolt is a great ranged stun. And just grouping by the door here to get all the rest across before we go ham on the boss. Again, saving Siegebreaker here because we're going to get a load of ad spawn, Whirlwind, Siegebreaker to get that buff across, Rampage to get big damage, and just cleaving them down. Dragon's Roar at the end there as well. And generally using Dragon's Roar on cooldown and Siegebreaker once I'm in the room, to make sure it's back off cooldown for when the last few people come across, making sure I get under that safe spot for the lasers as well. Now we're going to start going to the other room. I've saved Recklessness here because, again, my job is adds in the next room, not really boss damage at this point. I'm doing, a little bit of boss damage where I can, but making sure I've got that whirlwind buff, leaping across. I'm going to Recklessness straight away, and then cleave Siegebreaker. I've got enough for a rampage because I went with High Rage, Dragon's Roaring and interrupting to make sure they get killed and interrupted, and then just doing as much AoE damage as I can. And now we've got to dodge lasers here, so this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky. I've stunned early there to try and prevent too many casts going off. We've got someone on cart with another stun, which is good. And now we're getting safe. I'm getting that gripped across and getting back in as soon as we can. Making sure, I was going to say making sure not to die from the lasers, but I really fucked up there. There's two lasers, yeah. There's one which comes across and one from the ceiling. I was just too eager to try and get back and get that orb killed, and I just fucked up there and got lasered. Don't be me, don't fuck up. Back to ad management, letting the wind push me back there so I can get a free charge and a rampage. It's quite nice really for free charges and free rampages in that respect. And then we got more ads coming through. Now Dragon's Roar is off cooldown, so I'm probably going to try and use it as quick as possible once the ads come through, because that'll be a lot of damage coming off. And now we're in the final room, and we just really need to get those ads killed ASAP. And then as soon as they're dead, we're going to be single targeting the boss now. Now all cooldowns from this point are just going to be on cooldown when it's appropriate. So, when the boss isn't being dragged miles across the room, etc. Making sure I don't die from the lasers from the ceiling this time. Then as soon as this is done, Recklessness is going to go up. Moving away from the cleave there and then charging back in. You've got to be kind of careful with the cleave, because if the positioning is a little bit off, then you can risk getting cleaved. However, you can just let yourself winds push back, strafe to the side, avoid it, and then charge back in and get a free rampage. I'm moving my camera to a top-down view here as well, so I know that I'm definitely safe. Nobody wants to die twice in a fight, let alone once. And now from this point, it's literally just single target, making sure to avoid the stuff on the floor, the Purifying Flame. I'm sorry if I'm a bit bad with naming abilities. I just know how to deal with them. So it's like, avoid the shit on the floor, avoid the lasers, and keep going. At this point, you've got to be careful of the cleave, because the boss sometimes does cleave when you're stat like that. Make sure you look where she's pointing. There's the cleave. I'm letting myself get blown out. Charging back in once the cleave is done. Just trying to be quite safe there. Avoiding that stuff on the floor, I think. Or I got hit. Who knows? Either way, it didn't kill me. So making sure I get in line straight first before moving on to the safe spot. Because you could not be on those lines, however, be halfway in the room as long as you're in line horizontally with the safe spot first, and then you can move under. And we're just nuking the boss. I'm going to get my cooldowns come back at the end, so Siegebreaker on cooldown, regardless of Recklessness coming. Recklessness straight away, and just keep blasting. See, there you go. Even though I wasn't in the safe spot there, the lines come across, I'm safe, and then I can move to there, and it's dead. So kind of takeaways from that fight is the way you play it is going to depend largely on when you go through the rooms. For me, I was going through quite early, so there was going to be a lot of priority ad and kind of cleave damage, which is why Siegebreaker was great. Quite regular ads as well, which is why Dragon's Roar is great, and ads which need stunning sometimes from a distance, which is why Stormbolt I found to be the better talent. And you saw I was never really out of range long enough that I needed that double charge. Anyway, don't be me, don't die to lasers. I hope you found that one useful, and I will catch you on the next one. Zekphos. Cheers.